All right. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome. I am Eric Carr, your success concierge, and we are back. It's been a minute since I came on here. Just been living life. A lot been going on, been traveling, been busy, visiting friends, family. So, first time here this year. Happy New Year to you. Happy Black History Month. For those who celebrate that, but we do have some information that we're going to do as part of our case study as it relates to that. As you come on in, definitely hit the like button. We definitely appreciate you being here, being part of what we have going on here. Yeah, so it's good to be back. What have I been up to? Just traveling, starting new projects, working on some things because your success concierge, I want to keep growing, keep getting better so I can keep adding value to you. So, got some exciting things coming up, especially after April. Stay tuned for more about that. But yeah, your success concierge, we learning, growing, and we doing some things. Shout out to the new individuals who chose me as their image consultant, chose to work with me. I'm very excited for the progress that you're gonna make. Shout out to the December, January, and February birthdays. Congratulations! I know some people had babies, some people had birthdays. So cheers and celebration to you. And cheers and celebration to you because you're here with me this evening. That means you made it through the new year and you're ready to rock and roll and get some things done. But you know how we do. What is our sin of the day? It is, and it's kind of apropos for what we got going on here. It's Bond number 9 Tribeca. Now, I like this fragrance. It's cooler weather here where I'm at. It is a caramel, cocoa, smoky amber, vanilla. This is a beautiful, sexy fragrance right here. Unisex, so gentlemen and ladies, you can definitely rock this. This is very versatile. You could use it signature scent, right? And you can even try to wear it year round. You have to be a little bit light on the trigger depending on the warmer weather, because it does have that airiness and floralness within it. But it is a very beautiful, versatile fragrance. Grown and sexy, young guys, young girls, you can put it off, but this is not a jeans and t-shirt type of fragrance. This is something you wear, get you a little sweater, button up, ladies, nice dress. That you get that, you can rock and roll with that. So you can wear that as in the office, happy hour. I mean, this is a very versatile scent, and it lasts. I don't know if I've done an official fragrance review on that or not, but I definitely will have to do that. And I was just talking about earlier, some of the individuals I work with or looking forward to working with. We're in the early stages of that. But what is it I do? I help individuals make a great first impression by maximizing the ABCDs of image because you never get a second chance to make a first impression. I'm here to help you get your desired outcomes because when you mess up on that first impression, your opportunities go elsewhere, job, relationships, all those other things. You leave that up to chance. So I'm here to make it simple and easy for you so that we can definitely make sure we put you in position to achieve your desired outcomes. So that's what we got going on over there. Let's see what we got going on in the chat here. I know I haven't seen y'all in a while, so it's good to have y'all back. May have some trolls come in here too because we've been having some of them lately want to talk, but that's what they do. But yeah, so shout out to Miss Denise Mobley. Welcome. We see y'all in here. Everybody else hit the like button as well too. As you come in here, we got a great show for you tonight. I mean, sometimes it takes me a while to do some of these because one thing I like to do is I like to one put on a good show, good presentation for you, but I also like to be thorough in my information as well too. We had a lot going on in January. You see the case study person. I was going to do that, but we had a lot going on for like inauguration, all the other type of things. So I wanted to kind of take a step back and see how things were, see how because there was, high times, high emotional time during that time frame. But yeah, we back. I want to come through with that. All right. So let's get on to the topic, living a dream. All right. So as an image consultant, I focus on the ABCDs of image: appearance, behavior, communication, and digital footprint. And when people talk about dreams, that's typically a goal, whether it's short term or long term or something that they want to do. But why is that important to an image consultant? I'm glad that you asked. We talk about appearance, but behavior is also important as well too, because oftentimes when you have a goal or a mission, one, you want to be in congruence with those things for the ABCDs of image, right? But when you have a goal or a mission, it's going to require you to do some work or some type of effort, some type of change over a consistent period of time. Now, depending on the goal, it could be a short period of time, it could be a longer period of time. But oftentimes, the reason why there is a disconnect or people don't get certain things done is they don't have that consistent behavior over a long enough period of time to get things done. And that's why, as I was doing this research, and we'll get into it more so, but as I was doing this research, I saw that I learned some things about, he's a well-known individual, as you see, MLK, but I would learn some things that led up to him getting to the place that he was at and having the success and following that he had, because he's been doing a lot of these things at a young age, and then also too with his family culture, family structure. So we're gonna go ahead and get into it. This is the Cash App on the screen. You can always support the channel, but also too, that's another way that you can send in your questions as well too. So let me go ahead and get this party started. We definitely appreciate y'all tuning in. Welcome to Office Hours again. And we're going to go ahead and get started. But like I said, we talk about people starting at a young age, being consistent over a certain period of time. You look at your Tiger Woods. You look at the Williams sisters from tennis. You look at Ray Charles. Y'all hadn't checked them out. I know we have people of all ages. Very soulful guy. Then, of course, the Williams sisters as well, too. They had action and consistent behavior, and we're in congruence over a consistent period of time, as well as our case study for the evening. So we're going to go ahead and get into that. Give me 1 second. Let me make sure everything is showing up like I need it to show up. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen here. All right. Yep, click that. Okay, share. All right, let me make sure this is changing because my video is a little bit behind on the phone. Let's see here. Let's see. Okay, great. It changed. So let's go ahead and get into this. I am Eric Hall, your success concierge, and today we're going to be talking about living the dream case study on Mr. Martin Luther King Jr. Let's get started. So a couple caveats that I will say on this right here. I'm going to touch on a lot of the public things, a lot of things that we know, but there may be some controversial topics that could be up for speculation that I will not get into, or at least not deeply into. I'll leave that for you to do that as well too. As you know, when I do these types of case studies, I try to be as accurate as possible. Any inaccuracies that may occur are not intentional to be malicious in any way to malign the individual or those associated with them. We do speak honestly and truthfully here as well too. So let's get started. Martin Luther King living a dream. All right. So what's interesting is the early years of his family. Okay. So this is his mother and father, Michael King Sr. and Alberta King. And you say, Michael, okay, we're going to get into that as well too. But his family, they were in rural Georgia and grew up in Atlanta. And he became pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church, a famous church, in 1893. So his father, Martin Luther King Sr. or Michael King Sr. was born to James Albert and Delia King of Stockbridge, who were sharecroppers. So anybody who knows Georgia, Stockbridge, that's a little bit southeast, south of Atlanta. It's still kind of like, if you go out there, it's still kind of farmish and openish, but it's an interesting place. But his father was of Irish and Mende, which is the tribe from Sierra Leone descent, and he left he left his parents' farm, which was out in the Stockbridge area, and walked to Atlanta, where he attained a high school education. Now that's a good little walk, right? That may be good 20, 30 miles, depending on how deep in the city. But he did enroll in Morehouse College to study ministry. And him and Alberta King, this is the mother, Michael and Alberta, started dating in 1920. Married on November 25th, 1926. That's important just so you get a little background of his family and why he became the person that he became. So shortly thereafter, Michael King, was born January 15th, 1929 in ATL, Georgia. And they lived in the family home of his mother. And King was born there as well. He had a couple siblings, Christine King, who later became married Ferris, and a younger brother, Alfred Daniel King. So y'all know how I do. I get the family pictures as well too. All right. And so we're interested in talking about why he changed his name. So there was a Reformation leader. His name was Martin Luther. And in 1934, Michael King Sr. on a multinational trip for the Berlin to Berlin for the Congress of the Baptist World Alliance, which is interesting that alliance is still present today. But he went there and he was inspired by the individuals, and he experienced like they didn't like the organization didn't like how the Nazis were treating the Jewish people, colored people, and they didn't believe in oppression for any group or race in the world. So this was in 1934. So after he returned, Michael King Sr. changed his name to Martin Luther King Sr. And Martin Luther King, who was five, Junior, who was five at the time, he changed his name as well too. So that's how he got the name change. But let's talk about some of his early childhood. These are generic pictures, so because again, I try to find as accurate pictures as possible. So if I couldn't find specific things of him, because again, this is years old, these are generic pictures. So just so you know. So the King children, they read the Bible aloud to their grandmother. That's what they had them do, and they would tell Bible studies. And so sometimes MLK Jr. would get in trouble, and his father would whoop him. But he said he would stand there, and tears may come out of his eyes, but he wouldn't cry, which is interesting because even at a young age, he wasn't reactive to abuse, not necessarily abuse, punishment, such and so forth. But some early racial things that he experienced as well too. He had a friend who was white who his family owned a business across the street, and they would play together as children. But as they got older and started attending school, they went to segregated schools, and the boy's family told him they couldn't play together just because of that. And then another time when he went downtown to buy shoes for his father, with his father, they told him he had to go outside or sit in the back to buy shoes and stand. And his father said, either we'll buy shoes sitting here or we won't buy shoes at all. So that's already some of the pushback and activism that he experienced at a young age. And his father said, I don't care how long I have to live in this system, I will never accept it. And even his father, Martin Luther King Sr., was also an activist, a civil rights leader. He led marches in Atlanta for civil rights and to protest voting discrimination rights. This was in 1936. All right. And so he had the talent at a young age. Now, this is him at a young age right here. He could memorize hymns and Bible verses at 5 years old. He sang and played guitar. His favorite hymn was "I Want to Be More Like Jesus." Uh, he was part of a choir, sang, played piano. And one of the things he did at a young age is he read large dictionaries to increase his vocabulary. And sometimes he would get into verbal altercations or physical altercations, excuse me, but he was able to talk his way out of that as well. Now, despite his vocabulary, he didn't really have interest in grammar and spelling, so his sister had to help with that. And then also too, he played a slave in the in the church choir for Gone with the Wind, and then he enrolled in the University labs because he had a keen interest in history in English, and he also took piano lessons at the time. But he experienced some childhood trauma at a young age. Like, this is his childhood home here, and so he was just doing things. He was playing, and one time he slid down the banister and he bumped into his grandmother, and she became unresponsive. He thought she had maybe passed away because of that, and so he jumped out the second story window, thinking he had killed his grandmother, and so he was overcome with grief that he jumped out the window trying to commit self deletion. But when he heard she was alive, he got up and came back to normal. Another time, some years later, he, instead of studying at home, he went and snuck out to go see a parade, and he had heard something that happened to his grandma. That's why he came home, and she had had a heart attack and later passed on the way to the hospital. And he felt like he was responsible for her heart attack because he had snuck out and going to the parade, and he believed he was the cause of that. So again, he did jump out the second story window, but he survived as well too. All right. This is a picture of like a lot of his family members as well too. But even as a young man, now mind you, he's growing up in the South, Georgia area, South. So it's a lot different than other areas. But him and his family members and some of his friends and neighbors, they had resentments from other races of individuals as a young person. But when he was 13, he became the youngest assistant manager and delivery for the Atlanta Journal. And then he skipped ninth grade at 13 and enrolled in Booker T. Washington High School, and he maintained a B plus average. And his school was the only one in the city that took African American students. But it was interesting when you learn about where he's at to where he was later in his life, and even growing up in a highly religious home. Some of the things he did, he questioned religion, and some individuals did as well too. But he began to question some of the teachings that his father's church preached. Right, at 13, he was denying the resurrection of Jesus. He found himself unable to identify with the emotional displays of people in church. Now, for those who may go to different types of churches, some churches play music. Some people, as they say, get in the spirit and whatnot, and they have dancing, singing, breakdowns, and whatnot. And they say they're overcome with the spirit or energy. He began to question that, and he even doubted if he would ever obtain personal satisfaction just being, studying and following religion. And he had a lot of doubts about religion at this point in his life. So this is just an interesting part of his journey as well too. But let's talk about high school. He went into high school. He got into public speaking, joined the debate team. He was very well versed in English and sociology as his main subjects. He still had a large vocabulary, but again, he had his sister help him with his spelling while he helped her with his math. So very analytical with his thinking and whatnot. But one thing I liked about this is they called him Tweety Tweety because he often would wear tweed suits and patent leather shoes. So he was a sharp dresser. He was a bit of a ladies' man because he would dance and flirt with girls, and his brother couldn't keep up. He had a reputation with the ladies, and so 1944, during his junior year, he gave his first public speech for a contest, um, and he actually ended up winning the contest. He said, "Blacks in America still wear chains. Even the finest Negro is at the mercy of the meanest white man," and he won the contest. So he won the contest, but on the way back home, uh, on the bus, him and his teacher, they had to give up their seats, which you may have heard about later on in life that led to some activism as well too. And so they had to stand up on the way, all the way from where they were going to back to Atlanta. And he later wrote that night will never leave my memory. It was the angriest I've ever been in my life. And just imagine he just came back from winning like this major competition, but then he has that smack in the face after that. He enrolled like his father. He enrolled in Morehouse College, and in his junior year, Morehouse they began accepting high school juniors who passed the entrance exam. And so what was going on? World War II was underway, and many black college students they wanted to be enlisted, as well as the university wanted to increase their enrollment. And so at the age of 15, he passed the exam and enrolled in the university. Before he worked in the university, he worked in the tobacco for Coleman Boys Tobacco in Simsbury, Connecticut. And this is another thing that really opened his eyes as well too. And so in the North, where he was, Connecticut was up north. He wrote his dad about how things were integrated. And he said the white people here were very nice. We can go any place we want and sit anywhere we want. So that was part of some like possibilities that he saw that he could achieve in life. The farm he worked with partnered with Morehouse, so the money and wages he earned was what went toward tuition, housing, and fees. And so while he was up there, he would work during the week, and on the weekends he would go to the movies, have milkshakes, go see theater, shop, and eat. And he would attend church with other white congregants as well too. And he said he wrote to his parents. He said he could, if he wanted to, go to the finest restaurant in Hartford, and that the Negroes and whites go to the same church. So that was a different experience for him being in an integrated area. All right. So also while he was in college, he did some extracurricular activities. He played football, and it's interesting. Like at 18, when we talked about earlier, he was questioning his religious background. He wanted to go into ministry. That's what he decided to do. All right, and so you see him at the top left with another icon, Mr. Benjamin Elijah Mays, who was a Baptist minister and spiritual advisor. And King said that the church offered the most assuring way, an inner urge to serve humanity. He felt like that was the way he could serve more individuals, and that's at that time he made peace with the Baptist church. And even at the age of 18, 19, he believed he would be a respected force for ideas and will become a national minister. All right. So at 19, he graduated from Morehouse with a bachelor's degree in sociology. And then he continued to enroll in some theological education. He went back north to Crozier Theological Seminary at the University of Pennsylvania. He was actually elected student body president of Crozier. Um, and he worked with some other people who became prominent speakers. But one of the things he did with one of his classmates was drinking beer, and he was telling me, "Hey, we represent the other Negroes, the burdens of the Negro race." He said. So so when we talk about image, he wanted to not just look the part, but also be the part as well too. All right. So this was a very interesting story that I did not know. So when he was in his third year, he became romantically involved with a German woman who was an immigrant whose mom worked in the cafeteria. So she was a white girl. He actually wanted to marry her, but some of his friends and his father, they were against it because they felt like it would spark racial animosity and make chances of him being a Southern pastor a bit of a challenge. And so he didn't want to endure his mother's pain. So he broke off the relationship 6 months later. This is him and Harry Belafonte here. He said he felt like he never recovered. That particular young lady was the love of King's life. So after that, he continued to get his PhD or a theological doctorate. In 51, he began his doctoral studies at Boston University. And then also, too, by the age of 25, he went back to Alabama at Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. This is a church that I had family members that attended during that time. And that's one of the oldest churches in that area, founded in 1877, shortly after slavery. And it has a lot to do with the Alabama State University, which is one of the HBCUs down in that area. And so here's a little bit of controversy as well, too. So he did receive his PhD in 1955, but there was some controversy and some quote unquote asterisks that they put on there based in 91 because they felt like some of the things he wrote, he didn't provide quotations or cite sources. So I'll let you make of that what it means. But again, while he was in Boston University, he asked a friend if she knew any nice Southern girls. And so his friend, she spoke of a young lady named Coretta Scott, who was not interested at the time in dating preachers. But I guess, uh, her friend told her that King was a handsome young man. And King told her, "I'm like Napoleon Waterview before your charms." To which she replied, "You haven't even met me." So they ended up talking on the phone, meeting, and they were married in 1953 on the lawn of her parents' home in Heberger, Alabama. And as you see here, these are them with the four children: Yolanda, MLK the third, Dexter, and Bernice. And one thing that he wanted from Coretta is he wanted her to focus on being a housewife and a mother. So she had limited role, physical role in the civil rights movement, but she was always the supportive wife and family person to support him in that area. All right. So let's talk about activation and leadership, like the Montgomery bus boycott. All right. So Some people may or may not know. You see the young lady at the top left, that's Miss Rosa Parks. She was arrested for sitting on the bus, but what really happened is, well, she wasn't the first. There was a young lady. You see her with the glasses, Claudette Colvin, and she was the first one who did it in March of 1955. Challenge was Claudette was 15. She was unmarried and she was pregnant. And so at that time, they didn't feel like they could make her the face of the movement. And additionally, Rosa Parks, she worked for the local office as well too. So that's how the bus boycott plan with Martin Luther King and Edgar Nixon, and they planned the bus boycott. Now, what's interesting, we hear people talk about boycott now, boycott different things, but to do that, you definitely have to have a plan. And so what they did was they would carpool, they would volunteer, and they even, to take people here and there. And even they had black taxi workers who would charge 10 cents, which was the equivalent of bus fare. And so this bus boycott lasted 386 days. And at that time, his home was firebombed, but that made King a national figure, and he became the best known spokesperson for civil rights. Now, this was in 1955, so this was a little bit before the prominence of Malcolm and some other individuals as well too. All right. Now he formed the SCLC, Southern Leadership Southern Christian Leadership Conference, founded by MLK, Ralph Abernathy, Frederick Shuttlesworth, Joseph Lowry, and some other civil rights activists. And the purpose was to, take the moral high ground and the power of black churches to conduct nonviolent protests to drive civil rights reforms. And so his first national speech was the Pilgrimage of Freedom, the prayer for the Pilgrimage of Freedom, and King led the SCLC until his death. All right. Feds are watching because when he started doing these type of things, he started getting a lot more prominence as well too. He would meet with Mahatma Gandhi, and he urged President Kennedy to, issue executive orders for civil rights protection. So he would be at the White House, and then A.G. Robert Kennedy Sr., began tapping King's phones in 1963. And then you had, the COINTELPRO with J. Edgar Hoover, FBI. It's a lot of controversy around, the investigation, the life, as well as the death. I know this is 2025. We're under a new presidential administration who has said that they will release the information about, the death of King, John F. Kennedy Jr., Robert Fitzgerald Kennedy as well too. So we may get information on that. But the main things he was doing was leading marches and protests for voting rights, desegregation. Interesting that doesn't get enough press or talked about was labor rights, civil rights, and then that led to a couple acts before he passed the Civil Rights Acts of 1965 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. So in '58, he was doing a speech, and he got stabbed by a young lady, Isola Curry, and she was mentally ill, and she stabbed him in the chest with a letter opener, and she was later deemed unfit to stand trial. But this was like a very miracle, because one of the things King always talked about in his speeches, he said if he had sneezed, because it was so close to his heart, he would have died. But he did survive that as well too. All right, so ATL, Atlanta sit-ins, and going to jail. So this is like King really not just talking the talk, but walking the walk. You see different pictures of him as well too. But I want you, and we're going to touch on this a little bit later, but I want you to notice how he presents himself and how he's dressed. So in 1959, after 5 years in Montgomery, he moved to Atlanta, and he would co-pastor Ebenezer, the church's father, went. And so one time he had a Alabama license. It's not as quick as they are now, but not a Georgia one. But he was pulled over and arrested. He took a plea deal and received a fine and probation. Well, later on that year in 1960, he participated in a sit-in because he felt like the presidential candidates running at that time had ignored civil rights. and was arrested, and he was held from that probation for that ticket, and he was sentenced to 4 months of, as they call, hard labor. So John F. Kennedy enlisted his brother Robert to put pressure on the state, and King was released a few days later. And at that time, he decided to openly endorse JFK, and he won the election by a small margin. But after he did some sit-ins at lunch counters, which you see, and he wanted them to desegregate the schools. And at Warren Methodist Church, he told everyone to keep calm and resist the cancers of disunity, because in this time there was a lot of, even though they were nonviolent, there was a lot of violence toward them. And he also learned lessons along the way too. So he had the Albany movement in Albany, Georgia, um, because so they had asked him to come in, but they had already started some things already, and so he was involved. He got involved in December and was part of a mass arrest, and he was fined, and he had to pay a fine after 3 days into a 45-day jail sentence, and this went on for like nearly a year, but it didn't really yield the type of results that he would have liked to. So he said, let's have a day of penance to promote the moral high ground and nonviolence. That was the big thing about him. One of the things he learned from that is kind of pick and choose where you want to get involved, be in ones where you have more control versus coming in pre-existing challenges where you have limited control. The Birmingham campaign, this was huge for the movement, because this is where you see scenes where police department, Birmingham PD, Bull Connor, if you heard of him, but they would turn dogs and water hoses on people, and this was televised. And so one thing that really brought attention is you had blacks and people who were well dressed, had all the appearance of being law abiding, and because they were well dressed, well behaved, and whatnot, nonviolent, and then to see them get water hoses turned on them, dogs horn turned on them, that was a shock to whites, as well as brought blacks together for the movement. And he was arrested for the 13th out of 29 times, and that's when he wrote the famous letter from the Birmingham jail. And so the United Auto Workers, they arranged to bail out King and some of the other protesters for $160,000. This is the big one here, the March on Washington, and it was to take place on March 28th, or uh, August 28th, 1963, and it was for jobs and freedom. And initially, President Kennedy, he was not in support of it, but he later supported that as well too. So some of the specific pillars of that was in school segregation, civil rights legislation, preventing racial discrimination in employment, protection for civil rights workers, and the minimum wage to $2, which would be $20 in give or take in today's tournament times, and then self-government of Washington D.C. This is where King delivered the famous "I Have a Dream" speech. You see him there, and then also too, if you go to D.C., these are the steps looking out on the National Mall at the Washington Monument from the Lincoln Memorial, and you see the actual footprints of where he stood and the message "I Have a Dream." That's where he delivered that speech. Shortly thereafter, in 1965, they were doing the march from Selma to Montgomery. So this was an interesting thing. Um, they were barred from doing gathering of three or more people, but they defied it anyway. And so on March 7th, they were going to initially do it. They had made several attempts to do it. Sometimes King didn't feel right about the situation, so he stopped it or didn't go through with it. But you see, there was a mob that, they call it Bloody Sunday, and some individuals were hit with clubs, and bloodied up, injured, smoke, all those type of things. But a few weeks later, he did lead the march after several attempts prior. What's interesting about this is from family history. The march, make it seem like the march was one day. Well, actually, it was several days. So they would go for a little while, camp out in people's yard, go for a little while, camp out in people's yard. until they finally made it to the city of Montgomery from Selma. So March 29th, 1968, he went to Memphis to support the black sanitation workers who were on a strike for a few days. They had been going on a couple weeks since March 12th, and he wanted them to fight for higher wages and better treatment. So you see this picture of King going up the steps. This is one of the last photos of him uh, taken alive and being able to walk and move around for that. But he would he the on the third. That's when he delivered the "I've been to the mountaintop" speech at the Masonic Temple there. So the next day he was shot at the Lorraine Motel. You've seen this image of the individuals pointing after that. But in the aftermath, there were riots across a number of cities: D.C., Chicago, Baltimore, Kansas City, Louisville, and a dozen other cities. And so on the day, Robert Kennedy gave an improvised speech, and then he gave a prepared speech the next day in Cleveland. There are some individuals who call for nonviolence, but then Stokely Carmichael, if you know him, he was more militant. He wanted a more forceful response to that. And so shortly after that, the strike ended. But let's talk about legacy and belief. So King was against the Vietnam War. He initially did not speak out against it because he was wanting to get things done for the civil rights movement, and he felt like it would be a challenge if he became critical of President Lyndon Johnson at the time. But he saw people like Muhammad Ali and James Bevel, and they were speaking out against it. So he did speak out of that against it as well. He delivered the speech "Beyond Vietnam: A Time to Break the Silence." All right, and then so some of his things were inspired across the world. Um, uh, in South Africa, they found fought racial injustice and apartheid, and Arthur Lutuli won a Nobel Peace Prize. And then also too, there's a Martin Luther King Foundation and charity set up in the UK as well too, and they credit him with the civil rights movement there and the signing of the Good Friday Agreement. That was John Hume from the United Kingdom. All right. In the U.S., shortly after King's passing, they did pass the Civil Rights Act of 1968, Title 8, the Fair Housing Act. And then you see down here in the lower right, they had the King Center in Atlanta, and then that's where he is buried, as well as his wife as well too. And then on November 2nd, 1983, Reagan signed a bill which created a federal holiday, and then January 17th, 2000, all 50 states celebrated it for the first time, because there were some states who did not celebrate that. But he also had criticisms of the movement. You see him and Malcolm X. He was more militant. King was more nonviolent, and so he didn't agree with the integration, as well as the nonviolent approach, because he said he felt like the nonviolent approach was trying to appeal to a conscience which he felt people did not have. But King, the SCLC, they tried not to publicly endorse candidates. He said, "I feel like I must remain in a position of non-alignment so I can look objectively at both parties and be conscious of both and not the servant and master of either." He rejected laissez-faire capitalism as well as communism, as you see there. And then, an interesting thing is reparations, which is big. And so he was for reparations, but not just for blacks. He felt it should be for all disadvantaged groups, not just blacks. And he proposed 50 billion over 10 years to all disadvantaged groups, because he didn't believe it was possible for full restitution. Now, again, this was in the 60s. And so, 50 billion, maybe like 500 billion now, I'm thinking, because, of inflation and whatnot. So it was a significant amount. But what he believed it would, make people have fewer school dropouts, keep families together, as well as reduce crime, because people would, have economic means to not get engaged in those activities. But again, he felt it should not just be for blacks; it should be for all disadvantaged peoples. An interesting thing was Star Trek. Nicole Nichols, she was a horror on the first show, and on the show, and she was thinking about quitting. And he said, no, you're an image of where we're going. You're 300 years from now. And so that was one of the only programs that he allowed his children to watch, because he didn't feel like O'Hara had a black role or Nichols had a black role. He said an equal role on that. And the creator was also moved by the support. But he had quite a few honors, Nobel Peace Prize, Springer Medal from the NAACP, the Margaret Sanger Award, which that's interesting if you know her history and background. He had Grammy Awards for Best Spoken Word Recording, Congressional Gold Medal in 2004, Presidential Medal of Freedom, which was in 1977 after he passed, and he also had 9 honorary doctorates as well too. But let's get into our favorite part, which is the image, and this is why I think this was beneficial to him as well too. Appearance, he always looked the part, right? Um, because he wanted to show himself and the people who was with him as law-abiding citizens. They're doing, they're doing harmless things, and they're receiving bad treatment. And that allowed people to be empathetic and get behind them and on their side. And then behavior, he was doing speeches, he was doing marches, as well as he was arrested and sat in jail quite a few times. The purpose of that was he wanted people to see that he just not only talked the talk but walked the walk as well too. And then communication and digital footprint, he would do speeches, do newspaper articles with that spread that, and then also too, he was on television programs. So if you like these type of things, like, comment, share, subscribe. I'm Eric Hall, your success concierge, and thank you for tuning in to the case study, Living a Dream on Dr. Martin Luther King. All right, so that was a long one, but hopefully y'all enjoyed that. Let me come back here after that. Let's see what we got going on in chat here. I really enjoyed doing that one. I really did, because I learned a lot, because you hear like surface level things, but I learned a lot about him, his background, and some of the things that he stood for, because he was not only for, civil rights, but he was also for workers. He was also for people getting together and being united. And he actually lived the talk, right? I'm not going to get into, alleged infidelities or other stuff that he may or may not have done. We'll leave that for other people. But I really enjoyed the knowledge and information I got from that. Some came from resources that I found, and also too, some came from family stories of people who were around that time, participated in that and whatnot. So let's see what we got going on here in the chat, see what type of questions that we have for that, because that's what we do here. Um, Definitely hit the like button as well too. You can cash at me your questions, or you can do that to support the show as well. So let's look and see what type of questions that we have here. All right. Y'all be asking some good questions. Let's see here. This is a good one right here. If MLK were alive, what side of the political spectrum do you think he would be on? Just based on his history and background, I think he would be more independent and more conservative leaning. The interesting thing is, one side is very focused on identity politics. Another side is focused on, you know, people being who they are and supporting different causes and whatnot. So I think he would be somewhere in the middle. He may like some people who are conservative. He may like some people who are liberal, but I think he would be more center leaning, because he's more focused on, outcomes. He supports workers. He supports, people of all stations, but also too, he likes structure. He supports nonviolence and those type of things. So personally, I think he would be somewhere in the middle as it relates to that. I know there's talk that he may have been more Democrat in the past, or he may have been Republican. Um, it varies, and also too, you got to look at, there's been a leftward shift in a lot of individuals and groups. So it's not the same as it was previously. Those have been left, but personally, I just think he would be more center right than center left. So that is my assessment on that. Let's see what else we got right here. All right. Okay, this is a good one right here. What are your thoughts on the Kendrick Lamar Super Bowl performance and hidden messaging? Well, I mean, I was multitasking to be honest with you, having a good time, eating, doing some work. But based on what some people said, I mean, I caught a glance of it. There was some messaging that made some people excited, that made people, not very happy. And so the question thing about messaging, what is the outcome that you want? Because you have two types of speeches. You have informative and you have persuasive, right? So if that's informative, because I didn't really see a call to action, so I take it more as an informative. If the message was hidden, who was supposed to get it? Because we've seen people like you saw Kanye West years ago. He said George Bush doesn't care about black people after Hurricane Katrina, so he was blatant about what his thoughts were and what his stance was. And so I'll leave it to other people to talk about the messaging, what they took from that particular situation. But now that you saw that, what are you going to do? What's the action going forward? What's the outcome? Because I'm very outcome focused. All right. So if you're saying I want to inform people, and then what? So you take of it what you may, and you make your decisions based on that. But again, it's a form of art. It's a form of expression. We do live in a country that allows people to express their views and opinion. Some people may like those views and opinions. Some they don't. I'm never going to be for censorship in that manner. So he did his performance the way he wanted to do it, and let the chips fall where they may. You can like it, you can not like it, but that's what it is there. All right, so let's continue to see what else we got here. Uh, we already answered that. Let's see. Okay, let's see here because some of these are mixed in. All right, this is a good one right here. All right, I'm going out for Valentine's. What should I wear? Okay, so here, Valentine's is big in North America, and the person didn't really specify what their gender was or what they're going out for. But when I do these type of things, I always say, okay, where you gonna wear it to? Because like, is this for just a Valentine's or a home party? Is this for a dating event? Is this just to go and hang out? All those type of things matter. So think of what the occasion is that you're going to, and then what's the message that you want to send. Are you just saying I want to have a good time? I'm available for dating. I want to attract someone. So all these type of things, they really matter when you're getting dressed and putting on an outfit. If you're going out with your spouse, that's going to be different than you going out to try to meet a spouse or going out just to have a good time. All those things matter. So for me, I would have to learn more about what is the outcome that you want to achieve from that situation, and then I can govern myself accordingly and provide you with the proper recommendation. But definitely go out there, be safe, and have a good time. So that is my response to that. Let's see what else we got right here. Let's see here. Let's see here. Oh yeah, I'll be coming with the political questions. I said, do you think there's any regret or drop? Excuse me. Do you think there's any regret or buyer's remorse from Trump voter? I guess that's voters. No, I don't think so. And the reason is this, right? If you follow things, because I watch things and I observe, these are things that he campaigned on. It wasn't something that was hidden from the individuals who were supporting him. These are the things he campaigned on, from the deportation, from the the investigation of how money and dollars are spent, from the health care things, and all these other things. So these are things that he campaigned on. He was very forthright in what he was campaigning on, and a large number of people voted for that and supported that. So it would be different if he did a bait and switch. So I don't think those individuals are having buyer's remorse. But there are some people who don't like it, who may didn't believe he was going to do what he said he was going to do. But to me, the people who wanted that, they're getting exactly what they want. As they always say, elections have consequences. So such is life, as they say. All right, let's see what else we got here. Oh boy, y'all gonna get me with this. What do you think about the AD and Luca trade? Well, I mean, it's crazy. You know, it, it's crazy in Dallas because Luca was a fan favorite. Some people didn't like it, actually putting threats on the GM or person's life, which is not good. I mean, you never want to be violent or anything like that. But you had someone who's a fan favorite, and sometimes you have to make tough decisions. But when you make those tough decisions, you have to have some type of win to come out on the back end. So hopefully, Dallas can perform well and come out the winner on this trade, or come out better on this trade in both the short and the long term. As far as the Lakers, um, the way they're constructed now, they lost a big man, big force in that they got offense, but they lost defense. So we'll see how they are because the team that's been beating them the last couple of years, with the Denver Nuggets, and so Denver, they have a big man in the middle in Nikola Jokic, and one thing that Anthony Davis did, he provided some inside scoring to kind of counteract and give keep Jokic off balance. They don't have that now, but we'll see how it looks in the future. And again, they may or may not play each other in the playoffs, but if they do, we shall see. We'll see how things are. The regular season is the regular season, but the playoffs is a different animal entirely. All right. Okay, so what do you think about the new All Star format? Well, I mean, it's interesting because some of you have seen me. I've been commenting about some of the rules and how they're administered as it relates to basketball. I think they're a little bit liberal in what they consider traveling. And people say, "Oh, no, I watch with my eyes. I watch this." They give them a little bit extra. The NBA ratings are down, and people say down not just from years ago, from last year to this year. So don't blame streaming. Don't blame none of it. The ratings are down. Fan interest is down. So they're doing something to try to give it a little bit of pizzazz. Personally, I don't think mixing teams up and doing things like that. I think it's the effort and the engagement with the fans. Some of the players have kind of thumb their nose at the fans, which leads to them being disinterested. And then, we see in some of the games they're not very competitive. It's almost like a layup line 3-point contest, and the fans have said we're not interested in that. So they're trying a couple different things to see what's going to work and see what helps, but we'll see. I probably won't be watching the All-Star game. I may catch some clips here and there, but nothing about it really excites me personally, but there may be some of you who do. But the format, because they tried picking teams, they tried, East, West, all these type of things. They have to look at what's worked, and it may be some growing pains to step back to go back to what's worked. But either you got to find something new that works, or you got to go back to what works, and then make gradual shifts and changes. But it's not in a good place right now. That's why the ratings are what they are, and that's why they're doing a lot of experimentation to see what it is they want to do to make it work. So that is my perspective on that. All right, here goes a good one right here. Let's see what we got going on in the chat here. See if I usually put this up. I'll put it in here because I didn't earlier. We may have some people because I've had some trolls recently who like to talk a little bit, but they can come get cooked as well too. So if you want to join the stream, we can definitely do that. I'll put that up there for that. But let's see what other questions that we have um, before we close out. If that okay, let's see here. My fiance dresses poorly. Can you help him? This is a big challenge right here. Some people are, they want their partner, especially their male partner, to dress better. And what happens is when it comes to clothing, 86% of men's clothing is bought by women. That could be wives, mother, girlfriends, sisters, whatever you want to call it. And so a lot of times they are looking for some ways to make that better. Now, can I help them? Yes, I can, but two things. One, does that person want to be helped? Right? Because sometimes with anything, whether it's they want to get off drugs, they want to get a better job, they want to get in shape, they want to get whatever outcome they want to get, and they want to seek outside help. Well, the first thing is, do they want the help? Right? Because again, you don't want them to do something that you force them to do, and then you revert back. So you go through this never ending cycle. So can I help him? Yes, I can. Does he want to? Is he willing to be helped? and willing to do the work. That's yet to be seen. But the key is, have conversation with him, gauge his interest level, what he wants to do, and then you know how to find me. I'm here on Instagram. I'm here on in the chat here. You can always reach out to me and get your questions answered from that, and then we can talk about how he and I can work together. But let's see what we got going on in the chat. All right. Well, I guess we can close out, man. Hopefully, y'all have enjoyed this stream. I definitely appreciate coming to you, bringing you some information, bringing you some knowledge, and having a good time. Spend a little bit of time with you on this wonderful evening. Hopefully, you enjoyed the content for Black History Month. It's Black History Month. I want to do some people who may impact in not just my life, the lives of others, but also to provide some lessons to be learned as well too. So thank y'all again for tuning in. Happy New Year. I know we're a month late, but we ready to rock and roll and make some things happen. But thank you again, and we are out. Good night, everyone.